Hey guys, it is the Nerdy Movie Guy, and today we're going to talk about The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 3. Now, there are a lot of key moments in this episode that I think would be considered highlights, but this episode had too many to name, in my opinion, just one. So we're going to go through the episode. So in this episode, we pick up with Omega and Crosshair again on Tantus. This episode, Hunter and Wrecker aside, this episode is all things Tantus, much like the first episode. So this one, we get to see sort of the strategy that comes into play not only between Omega, but the Empire as well. So in this episode, Omega is trying to escape. And again, she won't leave without Crosshair. So in this episode, we finally get to see her make that escape attempt. But in the middle of Omega trying to escape, Emperor Palpatine has also arrived on Tantus now. And he's speaking with Dr. Hemlock, and they are talking about Project Necromancer, which we know ultimately, in the time of the Rise of Skywalker, Project Necromancer has worked. He has his puppet, clone, body, corpse, whatever you want to call it. Project Necromancer has worked at this point. Now, this is not something that the sequels had created. This is not something that the Bad Batch has created. If you remember back in Star Wars The Clone Wars, Season 2, Cad Bane had kidnapped a couple of Force-sensitive children and taken them to Mustafar. So Emperor Palpatine was actually, at that point, Darth Sidious was testing them for midichlorians. And in Clone Wars, they didn't specify exactly what he was going to do with it, but this is Dave Filoni writing that show and this show. So we see the connection between that story he's been trying to tell for a very long time. So at the end of the day, even though it was ultimately Disney's decision to bring back Emperor Palpatine in the sequels, I firmly believe that if we had a very different series of sequels, if episode 7, 8, and 9 were written by Dave Filoni, I think we still would have had Palpatine's return. Granted, for better or worse, we'll never know. But I think this was always going to happen, at least with Dave Filoni at the helm. So regardless, he's here on Tantus. He's checking in on Project Necromancer. And we get a little bit more progress on that. Because we've seen this starting in Clone Wars, The Bad Batch, The Mandalorian, and ultimately The Rise of Skywalker. So this is something that Palpatine's sort of always been working on. So now part of the thing in this episode that I kind of found hilarious. I don't know if it's meant to be funny, but I found it funny. Is when Omega is attempting to escape, she's checking for a shuttle that she and Crosshair can use, and she notices Palpatine is there on Tantus. So she comes up with the idea. To steal the Emperor's shuttle. Even though that ultimately did not happen, I think it just would have been funny if it did. It would have made sense for why the Empire would individually target the Bad Batch team because she stole the Emperor's shuttle, and it was sort of undermine Hemlock's grip on Tantus and sort of deteriorate his power in the Empire. However, that did not happen. She does get Crosshair out of his cell, and it's just a really cool scene to see because we've seen Crosshair be essentially depressed. You know, he wants to be left behind. He feels all alone. Doesn't want anyone to think about him or care about him or even remember him. But when Omega lets Crosshair out of his cell, he immediately becomes unhinged to attack the troopers there. And we just sort of see the fight back in Crosshair. His fight is back. And obviously he's still good at it. He still has the skills. His hand's been shaking, and we don't know how far that story is going to take. I know we're all worried. But for this episode, it didn't bother him too much, at least during the escape attempt, because Crosshair and Omega do make it out of the facility on Tantus. They're going to look for a shuttle in the jungle that had crash landed back in, I would think, the opening scene in this season. So now we're seeing sort of the pieces coming together. So as they make way for the shuttle, Dr. Hemlock, or Dr. Carr, had her altercation with Omega. Ultimately, she was stunned. Omega and Crosshair get away, and Dr. Hemlock is sending pretty much everything he has trying to stop them because he doesn't want prisoners escaping. Not only does he not want prisoners escaping, he doesn't want to be embarrassed. He wants to control his grip on Tantus, but also they are now on the verge of testing Omega's blood. And as we see at the end of this episode, she does in fact have an M count. So we'll see how far the story is going to go as far as her having that. We know that now the Empire is more desperate than ever to bring Omega back because she and Crosshair ultimately, with the shuttle, escape the planet of Tantus. But not without Batcher, which I think is just great. I think one of the sort of this beauty you can see in their escape attempt, Crosshair has he's been without a team. He's been working on his own, like, for the Empire for so long. He's been on his own. He's used to being a solo act. And although Omega's used to a team, she's been forced to be on her own on Tantus for so long. But when they're trying to get to the shuttle, between them relying on Batcher and each other, the three of them become a team again. So it's just really nice to see because it just proves that those instincts were always there. And Crosshair, obviously, with Omega's and Batcher's help, was able to escape. So we kind of get the sense that Crosshair was always meant to be a part of a team. He was never meant to be solo. He had that story for a while. It was a very neat story. But I'm glad that he's sort of coming to his senses with Omega's, giving him a little push that he needs. So they do escape, and we will see where episode 4 takes us. I hope it's Crosshair and Omega, and maybe not Wrecker and Hunter again. Maybe it's all 4. I don't know. I look forward to seeing the next episode. And with the Empire hunting them down now, with Dr. Carr almost seeming like she has a soft spot for Omega, but she still firmly believes in the beliefs of the Empire. So we'll see where the story goes. There's so many different pieces to this season that I think could easily just come together for a stunning finale. So I'm excited. I'm all for this season. I love the stories we've had so far. This episode was exciting. Had some of the best or the most action out of the 3 episodes, I think. So I'm very excited to see where the rest of the season is going to go from here because Crosshair is one of my favorite characters. Mega's growing on me so much, and I'm excited to see her maturity sort of just be fleshed out entirely because she's had to with Crosshair for so long, and now they're free, but they're still being hunted. So I hope that sense of maturity sort of sticks around. I hope they do get to have this sort of peacetime eventually. It doesn't look like they're going to get that just yet, so I'm excited to see where this goes. I've been loving the show, guys. First few episodes were solid. I'm excited for the next one. Thanks for sticking with me. Keep it digging.